The day had finally arrived. The wedding of Dayo and Yinka was said to be one of Lagos' most extravagant events. Everyone who was anyone was there, dressed in their finest and gathered to celebrate the beautiful couple. The event hall was a scene of sparkling decor and lush flower arrangements, creating an ambience that spoke of elegance and promise. But amidst all the glamour, one guest would soon steal the spotlight without even trying. Amaka, Inka's childhood friend and maid of honor, arrived a little later than the other bridesmaids. She was the last to slip through the grand doors, and with her arrival, it was as though time itself slowed. Amaka's gown was a soft, elegant shade of lavender that shimmered delicately in the afternoon light. The dress hugged her in all the right places, highlighting her curves, and she moved with a grace that seemed to captivate everyone around her. The room went still, a hushed, reverent silence falling as eyes followed her every step. Her smile was warm and genuine, and she greeted everyone with a nod or a wave as she moved gracefully across the floor. But her natural ease only made her more enchanting. Amaka wasn't just beautiful in the traditional sense. She had a certain glow, a light that seemed to come from within. Her long dark hair framed her face, and her eyes sparkled with a quiet confidence. To many in the room, she seemed almost untouchable, like a vision straight out of a dream. As Amaka made her way over to the bridal party, Yinka finally noticed her best friend's entrance. She smiled, a mixture of excitement and relief washing over her. "Amaka, you made it," Yinka claimed, hugging her tightly. "I was starting to worry you missed all the fun." Amaka laughed, a warm melodious sound that seemed to charm even the nearby waitstaff. "You know me, Yinka. I wouldn't miss this for the world. But traffic in Lagos." She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Let's just say it took all my patience to get here on time." Yinka laughed, nodding in agreement. "Don't I know it? I'm just glad you are here. You are my rock to the Amaka. I don't know if I could handle all this without you." Amaka smiled, placing a comforting hand on Yinka's shoulder. "I'm here, and you're going to be just fine. Today is your day, and I'll be right by your side through it all." But as the two friends exchanged reassurances, an almost imperceptible shift had occurred in the room. The guests who had been chattering excitedly just moments before were now stealing glances at Amaka. They murmured in admiration, a low buzz of fascination spreading as people speculated about who this beautiful woman was and how she knew the bride. As Daya stood with his groomsmen near the altar, waiting for the ceremony to begin, he too noticed the ripple that Amaka's presence was creating. He hadn't yet seen her up close, but he caught glimpses of her from afar. Each time his eyes landed on her, he felt an inexplicable pull. It was as though he had forgotten Yinka or the reason he was there. He loved Yinka, and this was their special day. But there was something magnetic about Amaka that he couldn't ignore. Daya shook his head, trying to refocus. This was his wedding day after all. He was here to marry the woman he loved, and yet his mind kept drifting back to Amaka, the bridesmaid who seemed to command attention without even trying. As he wrestled with his thoughts, the best man leaned over, nudging him. "Hey, Dayo, are you okay?" He asked with a knowing smirk, having noticed Dayo's distracted gaze. "Got your eye on someone already? Isn't that supposed to be your bride?" Dayo managed a weak chuckle, brushing off his friend's comments. "I'm just caught up in the moment, I guess," he replied, forcing himself to look away from Amaka. But as the ceremony progressed, he couldn't help but steal a few more glances away. Each time he felt a mixture of admiration and confusion, as though he was seeing something he didn't quite understand. His thought became a quiet internal struggle, a reminder that he was there for Yinka, tempered by the undeniable allure of his unexpected presence. Meanwhile, Amaka's presence was causing a ripple effect among the guests as well. The groomsmen exchanged whispered remarks, subtly shifting their positions to catch her attention. The photographer, an artist known for his sharp eye, seemed to spend an inordinate amount of time capturing candid shots of her, a task he had taken upon himself as if inspired. Even the DJ, who had caught sight of her from his perch, selected softer tunes, as though the music itself could complement her entrance. There was the best man, a lawyer with a reputation as a charmer, who began to strategize ways to get Amaka to share a dance later. Another groomsman, the son of a prominent Lagos politician, was equally entranced, concocting grand schemes to approach her after the reception. As each guest noticed her, a subtle rivalry began brewing, with each man trying to outdo the others in an attempt to capture even a flicker of her attention. Amaka, however, was blissfully unaware of the quiet chaos her presence had created. She was there for her friend, focused on making Nika's day as perfect as possible. Yet, with each passing minute, she was becoming more than just a bridesmaid. She was the hidden star of the wedding. Midway through the reception, Amaka noticed the photographer was taking a picture again. She turned to him with a polite smile. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I think you're getting too many shots of the bridesmaid instead of the bride. Isn't this supposed to be a day?" The photographer chuckled a bit sheepishly, but couldn't hide his enthusiasm. "Forgive me, Miss Amaka," he said, "but you are captivating, and as an artist, I can't help but want to capture beauty when I see it." Amaka laughed lightly, waving him off with a warm smile. "Thank you. But save some film for Yinka. She's the one who deserves the spotlight today." He nodded, though his camera didn't lower as he continued to watch her, caught in a fascination he could barely explain. Dayo's growing dilemma. Dayo's thoughts, meanwhile, became increasingly clouded. Every glance he stole at Amaka seemed to intensify the strange pull he felt toward her, even as he reminded himself of his love for Yinka. His mind whirled, and he wondered why this was happening. After all, he was happy with Yinka. They had shared dreams and plans for the future. But as he saw Amaka laughing with a group of guests, her joy seemed to light up the room, and he felt himself drawn closer, as though by some invisible thread. He tried to push away the feelings, repeating to himself that it was just a fleeting attraction, a moment of rewarding nerves. But deep down, Dayo couldn't deny that his fascination with Amaka was growing, almost against his will. Just as Dayo was lost in thought, the best man seized his opportunity. He walked over to Amaka, a charming smile on his face, and offered her his hand. "Miss Amaka, I will be honored if you share a dance with me," he said smoothly, bowing slightly in a playful, gentlemanly manner. Amaka chuckled, clearly amused by his formality, but accepted his hand gracefully. As they danced, he showered her with compliments, trying to impress her with tales of his courtroom victories and accomplishments. He listened politely, offering kind smiles, but her thought remained with Yinka and the celebration. Meanwhile, Dayo watched them from across the room, his emotions now a mix of jealousy and frustration. He had no right to feel possessive, but he couldn't ignore the pang in his chest as he watched the best man twirl Amaka around the dance floor. Just as the best man was making his plea for Amaka's attention, a new contender entered the scene, a young, ambitious politician and close friend of Dayo's family. He had been watching Amaka intently since she walked in, intrigued by her pose and charm. He saw the best man's attempts and decided he couldn't let himself be outdone. With a quick call on his phone, he arranged for a bouquet of roses to be delivered to her right there at the reception. The flowers arrived in minutes, a grand, fragrant arrangement of red and white roses wrapped in shimmery cellophane. He approached her, holding the bouquet with a grin that showed off his confidence. "Miss Amaka," he began, his voice smooth and assured. "I couldn't let this evening pass without showing you just how much of an impression you've made. These are for you, a little token of appreciation for gracing us with your beauty tonight." Amaka laughed, surprised by his gesture. She accepted the flowers graciously, though a hint of embarrassment tinged her smile. She thanked him sincerely, yet felt a bit self-conscious at the grand attention she was receiving. The politician gave a small bow before stepping back, casting a knowing look at the best man as if to say, "Top that." The competition was heating up. Not far off, Inspector Dan, a well-respected police officer known for his integrity and bravery, watched the scene unfold. Though he was a guest at the wedding and knew Yinka through mutual friends, he found himself unexpectedly drawn to Amaka. He was used to handling intense situations, yet his confidence seemed to waver as he contemplated approaching her. Still, he wasn't about to back down. If others could make bold moves, so could he. Gathering his courage, Inspector Dan made his way to Amaka, who was still holding the bouquet from the politician. With a polite nod, he introduced himself. "Good evening, Miss Amaka," he said, his voice steady yet warm. "I don't have roses or a dance move, but I'd love the chance to get to know you better. Would you join me for a walk outside?" Amaka, charmed by his simplicity and sincerity, agreed. She handed the bouquet to one of the bridesmaids to hold for her and accompanied Inspector Dan out onto the patio, where they could talk quietly away from the crowd. As they strolled under the soft lights strung above the garden, Inspector Dan shared stories from his work, letting her glimpse his dedication to helping others. Amaka listened intently, intrigued by his depth and warmth, and found herself enjoying the conversation. Inside, Daya watched Amaka leave the hall with Inspector Dan, and his emotions tangled even further. This wasn't just a passing infatuation. There was something about her that made him question everything. He clenched his fist slightly, feeling an odd pang of jealousy, though he knew he shouldn't. His heart was in conflict, pulled between the woman he was meant to marry and the captivating presence of Amaka. "Dayo," a voice interrupted his thoughts. It was his aunt, who had noticed his distant expression. "Are you all right?" Snapping out of his reverie, Dayo forced a smile. "Of course, Auntie, just a bit overwhelmed with everything." But even as he said it, he knew it was only partially true. Meanwhile, Pastor Conley, a charismatic and well-known preacher, had also taken an interest in Amaka. He had watched her quietly from a distance, observing her kindness and the way she interacted with everyone around her. To him, Amaka wasn't just beautiful. She seemed grounded, wise beyond her years. Pastor Conley approached Amaka later in the evening after a walk with Inspector Dan. He offered her a warm, genuine smile, his eyes twinkling with the wisdom he often shared in his sermons. "Miss Amaka," he began softly, "God has blessed you with grace and beauty that reaches beyond the physical. I can see a purpose in you, a light that's rare in this world. You deserve to be surrounded by people who see that light and respect it." Amaka smiled, touched by his words. "Thank you, Pastor. That means a lot to me." They talked for a while and he spoke of his passion for his ministry and his hopes for their future. Their conversation was deep and uplifting, a refreshing change from the other's more direct approaches. Amaka appreciated the gentle wisdom in his words, and she left the conversation feeling both humbled and inspired. Daya makes his choice. As the evening drew on, Daya's internal struggle reached its peak. Watching Amaka gracefully handle each admirer, seeing the respect she commanded without asking for it, only strengthened the pull he felt toward her. Each glance, each smile she gave seemed to speak directly to him, though he wasn't sure if she even noticed his attention. In a moment of impulse, Daya decided he needed to speak with her to get some clarity for his own heart. He found her standing alone near the dance floor, watching Yinka laughing with her friends. Approaching her cautiously, he cleared his throat. "Amaka," he began, his voice low and uncertain. "Do you mind if we talk privately?" She looked at him, a bit surprised, but nodded, leading him to a quieter corner of the hall. Once they were alone, Dial hesitated, searching for the right words. "Amaka, I don't know how to say this, but since I saw you today, I can't stop thinking about you. It's as if you've awakened something in me that I didn't realize was there." Amaka listened, her expression thoughtful but unreadable. She did not interrupt, allowing him to finish. Dio sighed, a conflicted look crossing his face. "I love Yinka, I really do, but something about you, it's confusing. I don't know what to do." Amaka placed a gentle hand on his arm, her gaze steady. Dio, I understand that emotions can be overwhelming, especially on a day as big as this. But remember why you are here. You are here for Yinka. She loves you deeply, and today is about the life you're building together. Don't lose sight of that. Her words, calm yet firm, hit Dio like a wave. She had seen through his confusion, recognizing the importance of the commitment he was making to Yinka. Dio nodded slowly, feeling a weight lift from his chest. "You're right, Amaka," he said, his voice filled with newfound clarity. Thank you. Thank you for helping me to see that." A happy ending. As the night wore on, Amaka continued to be a radiant presence, enjoying the celebration alongside her friend. She laughed, danced, and shared in Yinka's joy, truly happy for her best friend. The men who had tried to impress her eventually realized that she wasn't looking for grand gestures or extravagant displays. She was content in the simplicity of the moment, celebrating her friend's happiness. Dio too felt a sense of peace as he returned to Yinka's side, holding her close and vowing to cherish her with his whole heart. He understood now that his momentary fascination had been a passing storm, and his love for Yinka was his true anchor. And so, as the wedding drew to a close, Amaka remained the captivating presence she had always been, yet untouched by the whirlwind of admirers who had been drawn to her light. She left the reception that night feeling fulfilled, grateful for the love she had witnessed and the friendship she cherished. For in the end, Amaka wasn't seeking to be adored. She was simply living in the beauty of each moment, knowing that true happiness comes from the joy shared between friends and the love that speaks to the heart's deepest truths.